is essential in securing rights to access natural resources in order that communities can help manage them sustainably and take a lead in promoting conservation from the bottom up.
Law and conservation are actually interconnected. Without law, we cannot facilitate conservation of nature.
It is necessary, but it's certainly not sufficient. The law is always a trailing indicator.
Without strong policy, there's no point in, having any kind of strategy to prevent deforestation and, for example, climate change. You need strong policy at the higher level to ensure there's action on the ground.
Legal space is required for indigenous communities to claim their rights on their common pool resources.
Maybe it's a yes and no, whereby I believe conservation should be part of the way of life, but also laws govern how people live their life. Because issues to do with conservation are mainly related with externalities. They are not, the economics of it are not straight. So, and one of the ways to deal with externalities is through the law.
Una cosa es hacer una ley y otra cosa es implementarla y a darle seguimiento. Entonces, son muchos niveles y muchos componentes que tienen que tener sentido en el futuro próximo, ¿no?
Conservation depends on the appropriate legal frameworks and proper governance systems. I think without law and proper law and without regard and rule of law, we will lose a lot of conservation estate across the world. So I would particularly, agree that law is central to conservation efforts.
Law and order is important for the protection of the biodiversity on this planet. Also, there is the indigenous people, and the indigenous people's customary law and practices are very important to conserve the biodiversity.
You cannot lump everybody in the same group and make one law for that. And you have to consider the indigenous people's culture when you do establish a law.
It actually marks boundaries between the government and the local people, and this is where the conflicts come in. In Iran, where we work, this is one of the issues that we have. When there's too much law, too much restriction, there's more conflict.
When you're doing conservation activities, you are trying to have a connection with local people, and you're trying to do it in a different way, not by law.
You must make sure that local people understands that law, agrees with that law, and is able to participate in building that law.
Unfortunately, yes, because people don't always behave in the way that you would want them to. So sometimes we need a construct that's enforceable around protections and means to assure a future for the resources.
But the problem is with the enforcement, because there are laws, people know, but somehow people do not comply.
When you have a law, it's like setting the limits, but if you don't have enforcement or change in the behavior of people, laws are not enough.
Y el problema realmente no es que no existan leyes en la conservación, sino que más bien se les ignora.
I think given the gravity of the situation, and particularly wildlife trade and such, we need to send a very strong message to people who deal in wildlife trade. We will not tolerate the extinction of our animals because of this illicit activity. So yes, legislation is absolutely important in conservation.
There will always be people who see nature's value in terms of profit and short-term gains at the detriment of its long-term future. And so if we have a law that we, as a collective society, agree to, then that's very strong and can be stronger than the individual interests that may try to undermine the future of our world.
It affects our daily lives, it affects nature, it affects how we are interacting with our world, and we need it to survive. And so we need laws in place that will help protect it.
Le droit a une place essentielle dans la conservation de la nature, parce que c'est le droit qui oblige, c'est le droit qui interdit, c'est le droit qui réglemente, donc le droit a une place essentielle.
Uno de los grandes problemas que tenemos hoy en relación con la gente y la conservación es la ausencia de marcos legales claros, la ausencia de una legislación clara, y más bien lo que tenemos en muchos casos son legislaciones obsoletas que no permiten que la gente trabaje por la conservación y que la conservación trabaje para la gente. Es actualizar, desarrollar, fortalecer marcos legales que nos ayuden a mirar hacia el futuro.
Law has a very important place when you talk about the conservation and the natural resource management. Law decides the equitable sharing of the resources.
Law is fundamental. I think as a society, over the years, we're getting more and more organized, so we need laws to regulate. Otherwise it would be a free-for-all. And then the benefits that accrue from resources will not be spread even.
The protection of our resources needs to be enforced. We need to monitor what people are doing and how they're interacting in our environment. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to make laws and make policy.
If every single person took just what they needed, we wouldn't have to have it. But there's someone who might take just what they need and others who take more than they need.
It really sets the regulations and the policies that we want to enforce to preserve our natural resources. And without laws, we really won't be able to do that.
Conservation needs to happen from the ground up, and in some instances it needs to happen from the top down. There's always a place for law. Our governments need to regulate each other and be responsible to each other.
Because it gives you a framework within which to build your conservation action and your solutions.
With law, you can get a lot more accomplished and you can get a lot more land protection going with law, species protection. It goes on, but I definitely think that law is important in conservation.
Los que tienen la potestad de aplicar esta ley no lo aplican. Hablamos del Ministerio Público, hablamos de la división de la naturaleza.
Law helps us to define the boundaries about good and bad. It's not the only thing we need. We also need collaboration. We need a kind of a free will to do things beyond the laws.
Even with a law, though, you're going to get people who are not conservation minded still go out and break the law. So the best you can do, I think, is education and outreach.
We do need rules to guide us towards the end goal so that we have a process that takes us to conservation. Because what we have now is a lot of groups, a lot of countries taking it upon themselves, but perhaps doing it a little bit differently. In a universal law, I think we'd be much more effective than we are now.
And law is, I think, the binding glue, if you will, pulling together businesses, pulling together NGOs, pulling together states and governments.
It's your guideline to preserve what you have. If not, everything would be so chaotic.
Conservation of the nature is an obligation for all the countries and all the governments, all everybody.
I think mankind needs agreements in order to set the proper boundaries between our role in nature and nature's role in our life.
But when man's laws was introduced to justify the taking of land and lives and is used for the betterment of humanity, not for personal gain, then that law has got to be parallel and as powerful as the perfect law of life itself.